Welcome to my chambers. The hack on the Democratic National Committee, which exposed emails, continues to intrigue. The emails, which were exposed by WikiLeaks, revealed a very strong bias on the part of high officials in the Democratic Party for the candidacy of Hillary Clinton, and a very strong prejudice on the part of the same people towards the candidacy of Bernie Sanders, even though such bias and prejudice had been alleged by Sanders and denied by the Democratic National Committee. It even resulted in the resignation of the chair of the committee as a result of a unanimous request from the members of the committee and the intervention of President Obama himself. But in order to get this issue off the front page, the DNC and the Clinton campaign decided to blame, of all people, the Russians. They accused Vladimir Putin of being in cahoots with Donald Trump and having his intelligence services hack the DNC to expose emails to make Mrs. Clinton look bad and thereby benefit Donald Trump. But the Russians had nothing to do with it, because this week, a 30-year veteran of the National Security Administration, the NSA, the domestic spies who spy on all of us all the time, the former high-ranking NSA official who developed the software that the NSA now uses, which allows it to capture not just metadata, but content of every telephone call, text message, email in the United States of every person in the United States of America. This individual said, guess what? The NSA hacked the Democratic National Committee. Why would the NSA hack the DNC? Because the members of the intelligence community simply do not want Hillary Clinton to be president of the United States, because she doesn't know how to handle state secrets. Because some of the state secrets that she revealed use the proper true names of American intelligence agents operating undercover in the Middle East. When they lost their covers, they ran for their lives, and some of them didn't run fast enough and lost their lives. It's very telling that the intelligence community would feel so strongly about Mrs. Clinton that they would attempt to sabotage her campaign to prevent her from becoming their boss. It's also telling that these folks would break American law in order to, in their view, save it. Welcome to my chambers.
We asked Julian Assange whether he has the email that could put Hillary Clinton in prison and talk about whether the next leak could change the outcome of the US presidential election. Julian Assange, thanks for agreeing for this interview. Aren't you worried that you're on this channel RT after being accused by Hillary Clinton, basically, of working for the Russian government? We know Russian intelligence agencies hacked into the DNC. WikiLeaks is now publishing all the hacked emails.
I don't think WikiLeaks can be constantly worried about PR. I've been called a Mossad agent. It got so bad, in fact, that the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, had to put out a press release denying that I was a Mossad agent. I'm not sure, actually, that's particularly helpful. A cat torturer, a CIA agent, etc. So it's expected with our publications. Russia has been brought up by Hillary Clinton, most recently, just a few days ago, on Fox. So I think it is necessary to address what WikiLeaks feels is its perception of its own publication to the RT audience. Everyone accepts that the emails that we have published, the 20,000 DNC leak emails, are completely accurate. So no one is saying, no, I didn't say that in this email, it's a fabrication, etc. That's accepted. It's not surprising that it's accepted, because WikiLeaks has a 10-year publishing record where we have never got it wrong. And that's an impressive business. It's also why we take a while to publish what we have, because we want to keep that perfect record. Now, given that the real source is known, in this case, it is the DNC, it is Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it is the Louis Miranda, the head of communications. We know they are the original source. So there's quite a difficulty in the Clinton campaign to try and outmaneuver the publication. So the content itself is unquestionable, so instead you have to bring in some other actor. So the actor that they've tried to bring in is the Russian intelligence services.
Hillary Clinton just said, we know Russian intelligence agencies hacked into the DNC. We know they arranged for emails to be released.
Yeah, so actually she has a slight variant on the we know I don't think she says emails, I think she says some documents. Because the difference here is that do state actors hack the political organizations of different countries? Does the United States government do it? Absolutely. Of course, it hacks the political parties of many different countries. Does French intelligence, Chinese intelligence, Russian intelligence hack political parties in order to collect intelligence? Yes. Did they hack the DNC? Has at least one state actor hacked the DNC? If you read very carefully, they say it's been hacked many times over the last 2 years. And our sources say that the DNC security is like Swiss cheese. The DNI, the Director of National Intelligence of the United States, several months ago said that both the RNC, the Republicans, and the DNC were being attacked by a range of actors, from philosophical opponents to states engaged in espionage. Now, the head of the DNI, James Clapper, who's responsible for all US intelligence agencies, he's the boss of the CIA. If anyone knows what US intelligence agencies he knows. And on Friday, he had to come out and say that there's a lot of media hyperventilation, that they have no idea as to what motivation is, even if they did know who it was. So that's the head of the DNI dampening down ideas that they know who it is. Now, this is a separate question to the release of our emails. So in the US media, there's been a deliberate conflation between DNC-Leaks, which is what we've been publishing, and DNC hacks of the US Democratic Party, which have occurred over the last 2 years, by their own admission, a number of times. I think this statement by Hillary Clinton on Fox really does need to be tackled because it concerns us directly in our publications. What she is attempting to do is to conflate our publication of pristine emails. No one in the Democratic Party argues that even a single email is not completely valid. It hasn't been done. And the head of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, has rolled as a result. And whatever hacking has occurred of the DNC or other political organizations in the United States by a range of actors. Now, in the middle, we have something which is the publication by other media organizations of information purportedly from the DNC, and it seems to be the case. So that's a series of Word documents and PDFs published by The Hill, by Gorka, by The Smoking Gun. This is a completely separate batch of documents compared to the 20,000 pristine emails that we released. In this batch of documents released by these other media organizations, there are claims that in the metadata, someone's done a document to PDF conversion, and that in some cases, the documents, the language of the computer that was used for that conversion was Russian. Okay, so that's the circumstantial evidence that some Russian was involved, or someone who wanted to make it look like a Russian was involved with these other media organizations. That's not the case for the material that we released.
Any Russian connections between Hillary Clinton and Russia? Any Russian connections there?
Hillary Clinton has done quite well strategically to try and draw connection between Trump and Russia because she has so many connections of her own. Now, my analysis of Trump and Russia is that there is no substantial connection. Why do I say that? Well, because Trump was trying to invest in Russia before Putin in the 1990s, after Putin, in fact, nearly all the way up to the present moment. And he's had no success. He did not manage to build hotels and so on in Russia. So that shows how insubstantial his contacts are. There's an extremely well-documented pattern of when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, those people, companies, governments, who wanted a decision by the Secretary of State in their favor, making large donations to the Clinton Foundation, or in some other cases, business deals with the people around Hillary Clinton. Now, one particular instance is the approval by Secretary Clinton of selling 20% of the US uranium reprocessing rights to a Russian company to be exported to Russia. So at that time, a large donation was made by those Russian interests to the Clinton Foundation. In addition, Clinton's campaign manager, Podesta, was on the board of a company called Juul Unlimited. And Juul Unlimited held some of these rights and received a $35 million investment from Russia.
And that's a Russian government company.
And also, Russians were on the board also with Podesta.
So the kind of email revelations from WikiLeaks reveal that Hillary Clinton is a Kremlin stooge.
I wouldn't say Kremlin stooge, but there is a much deeper connection on record with Hillary Clinton and Russia than we are presently aware of with Donald Trump.
Well, some journalists would argue that it's actually the subject of the revelations that's more interesting to the American voter about the election, while the media, of course, is fascinated about whether the Kremlin is working with you, whether you work for the Kremlin, basically.
No, but it's very, I think it's a genuine question. You should ask the sources of information. The least, however, in the case of WikiLeaks publications. Why do I say that? Well, the principal reason why you want to know the source of some statement is to understand whether it's true or not. It is a big issue in the case of other media organizations who are simply making claims and not publishing original documents. I'll give you an example, a very, very interesting example. I've done some research on the Turkish coup. Okay. Now, it's not spoken about in the West, but within Turkey, the Turkish newspapers are publishing elements of a theory that the United States was directly involved in the coup. The US intelligence backed Fethullah Gulen, who's based in Pennsylvania, as the head of the Gulen cult that has been implicated in the coup. In fact, according to the Turkish government, is the leading actor in the coup.
He's wanted by President Erdogan.
Yes, and they've put out an extradition request and so on. But one of the key independent points of evidence, not coming from an interrogation in Turkey where people might have been placed under duress, is that in the middle of the coup, NBC published that Erdogan was on his way to Germany to seek asylum. And they say this was told to them by a US military source. So what the hell is going on there? Because that went all the way around the world and was used to further the chance of the success of the coup within Turkey, because if the president has fled, then he has lost control.
NBC, a close supporter, so Trump supporters would say, of Hillary Clinton. So would a Hillary Clinton presidency endanger the NATO alliance and the ability to store American nuclear weapons at Incirlik Air Base and use it as a base to bomb Iraq and Syria under Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think either government is potentially a problem because of, I mean, that coup was in Turkey a very serious business. Hundreds of people have died. About 100,000 people have been fired or arrested in the post-coup purge, opportunistically in some cases of political enemies of Erdogan, in other cases trying to purge the society of the Gulen movement.
Because the Clinton Foundation's major donors include members of the Gulen movement that Erdogan says were responsible for the attempted coup d'etat.
Right, so I mean, Erdogan's going to look at that and treat Clinton suspiciously. But I mean, you know, regardless of who becomes President of the United States, you have an extremely large bureaucracy, intelligence bureaucracy, that has its own mind in things. So he's going to look, unless Trump is elected and engages in a significant purge of the CIA, for example, I think Erdogan will continue to view it very suspiciously, especially as long as we've got Feta Gulen being protected in Pennsylvania.
Julian Assange, thanks. We'll have more from Julian just after this break. So back to the democratic process in the United States. Basically, the first batch you released showed, and obviously we did have, at least you've got to admire Wasserman Schultz for resigning very quickly after your emails were released, after the WikiLeaks publication. There was a dirty tricks campaign against Bernie Sanders, so Democratic primary voters didn't really understand what was going on during that process?
So go back. Hillary loses the election, loses the primary process against Obama. At that point, Tim Kaine was the head of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. So then some kind of deal is done whereby Debbie Wasserman Schultz becomes the head of the DNC and Tim Kaine steps down. Now, if you're Hillary and you're thinking strategically that you're going to run again in 4 years or 8 years, to have your campaign manager as head of the DNC, controller of the, if you like, the regulator who's regulating the nomination competition, is a huge strategic advantage. Okay, so now let's wind forward, and the 20,000 DNC leak emails that we released. Okay, so they're from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, head of the DNC, and 6 other prominent people, finance, communications, and so on. And so what they show is that within the DNC, there was a unity of the most senior people, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz, to act against Bernie Sanders in the nomination process and for Hillary Clinton. Now, in what particular actions were performed? Well, there's a lot of discussions. There's discussions about we can use a captive reporter and push out the fact that Bernie Sanders might be an atheist and not a Jew, and this is going to cost him in the South. And where MSNBC, on its most influential morning program, Morning Joe, was defending Bernie Sanders, then Debbie Wasserman Schultz called up the president of MSNBC. Amazingly, this is not reported in the US media. It is reported in the US media that they called up Chuck Todd, who's the host of Meet the Press. Okay. Something much more serious is not reported, that Debbie Wasserman Schultz herself personally called up the president of MSNBC to apply pressure in relation to positive coverage about Bernie Sanders on Morning Joe, their big morning TV program. Okay. Then to my mind, what is the most serious from an evidentiary point of view? It is the communications director, Louis Miranda, making an instruction to his staff to pump out a black propaganda story against Bernie Sanders, saying that his supporters were violent, and to put this out in a, quote, unattributable, unquote, manner. Why do I say that is the most serious? Because it is an instruction given through the chain of command to staff. It's not a discussion. It's not any one person calling up another person. And it is to depict Bernie Sanders supporters as violent. So that is not just a critique. That is not just to give Sanders a break here or make things a little bit harder for him there. It is to demonize a Democrat in the eyes of the public. So the Democratic Party demonizing a Democrat in the eyes of the public through covert means.
Well, there is no way, presumably, Hillary Clinton can win if there is a link between Hillary Clinton and ISIS-Daesh. Now, I know your WikiLeaks is reviewing all these different emails. You have so many of them, and you need to look at them and who they can damage, who they can't, all sorts of things WikiLeaks does before releasing them. President Obama is now bombing ISIS-Daesh positions in Libya, so it's reported. Did Hillary Clinton use Libya as a conduit to sell arms to ISIS-Daesh in Syria?
The US government, at the time that Hillary Clinton was in charge of foreign policy, did use Libya as a conduit to get arms to jihadists in Syria. That's well established, not just by a range of our materials, but by the investigative work of Cy Hirsch and a variety of other investigative reporters in the United States. Some of those even published in the New York Times.
And any of the emails, I mean, you have mentioned that Libya comes up in so many of the emails that you've been releasing. As regards Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State.
In the batch of 32,000 emails we released a few months back, there are 1,700 in relation to Libya. So including, I suppose that the most useful one is which is colloquially referred to as Hillary Clinton's Libya brag sheet. So she was documenting all the ways in which she led the invasion of Libya in a political and, to a degree, an organizational sense. So pushing it within the US government, bringing in the European partners, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Even going there herself personally.
Anything to add to reports that, according to the French papers, the big French industrial conglomerate Lafarge, which has been donating money to the Clinton Foundation, and has got the reports in the French press were it was it was relating funds with ISIS-Daesh. Any information, any emails that connect up Hillary Clinton to ISIS-Daesh through Lafarge?
Well, most of this work was done by Le Monde, so that's the New York Times equivalent of France. And so what they show is that Lafarge, which is a giant, amongst other things, a giant concrete company, transnational concrete company, was involved in Syria. There's, interestingly, more than 350 Lafarge-related emails in our Syria emails release. So that's 2 million emails that we published about Syria, including the personal emails of the President Bashar al-Assad. And so the investigation by Le Monde reveals that they paid ISIS-Daesh money, taxes, if you will, for their operations in certain areas. Yeah, they engage in a variety of business deals.
To Clinton Foundation. We're waiting.
And Hillary Clinton's involvement is that money from Lafarge in 2015 and 2016 went to Hillary Clinton Foundation. So that's recent. Now you ask, well, why let's go to Hillary Clinton Foundation? Actually, there's a long-term relationship between Lafarge and Hillary Clinton. She was a member of the board, for example.
Do you expect that, I know you can't comment directly about the pending email releases from WikiLeaks, but do you expect more about the Clinton Foundation?
Yes.
I have to also get to Yemen, because Saudi Arabia does crop up in some of the emails you've already released. 20 million people now facing humanitarian disaster. Clinton Foundation mentions to, there was no mention of the Clinton Foundation at the DNC conference, noticeably, at all, about the good works it does. Do you think part of it is that connection to Saudi Arabia, let alone the 28 pages of connection of 9/11 to Saudi Arabia? What is the connection between Hillary Clinton and Saudi Arabia that certainly got Israel angry?
Well, it's extensive. I mean, the relationships between Hillary Clinton and Saudi Arabia, between the Clinton Foundation and Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia is probably the largest single donor to the Clinton Foundation. And you can see Clinton's arms export policies, why she was Secretary of State, favouring extensively Saudi Arabia.
William Binney, the whistleblower who's been on our show, says that the NSA can easily get access to all these emails. So if there is illegality in the pending emails of your release, or malfeasance in the ones you've already released, President Obama could presumably act on it and get Hillary Clinton charged, regardless of whether you're about to release an email, which would mean that James Comey or the FBI would have no alternative but to arrest Hillary Clinton.
Well, our view, which we have already stated, is that if the evidence that the FBI has is enough for a grand jury to indict already. That's not hard. It's actually saying that a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich if instructed to do so.
Exactly.
But which I'm having, because I have a grand jury myself, a federal grand jury in Washington D.C. I'm well aware of what they're like. But the prosecutor has to ask the grand jury to indict. And the prosecutor doesn't ask, the grand jury won't indict. So that's the basic problem.
Do you believe she can win, given the emails you've so far not released?
Can she win the election? That's an interesting question. I wouldn't be willing to say so